Welcome back to Revenge Chronicles. Tonight's story begins in Charleston, South Carolina. It was New Year's Eve. The kind of night where restaurants glow with fairy lights, champagne glasses never stay empty, and everyone pretends the coming year will magically fix the last one. My older brother stood up during dinner, tapped his fork against his glass, and smiled like he was about to deliver something charming. To the one who always shows up, he began. People at nearby tables turned slightly. He loved attention. Broke, overly sensitive, and still trying to prove she matters. Laughter exploded at our table. My mother leaned back, covering her mouth as she laughed. My father shook his head like it was harmless sibling humor. I didn't laugh. I lifted my glass slowly. To the one whose rent account I just closed. The silence that followed felt cleaner than any apology I'd ever received. My name is Sofia Carter. I'm 30 years old. And for most of my adult life, I've been the quiet foundation of my family. The dependable one. The planner. The Sofia will handle it solution. I work in hospitality management for a luxury resort chain. On the outside, it sounds glamorous. Ocean views. Corporate dinners. Networking events. In reality, it means long hours fixing problems created by other people. Funny thing is, that's exactly what I did for my family too. Without the paycheck. Without the thank you. It didn't start as exploitation. It started as love. My brother, Ethan, had always been charming. Effortlessly social. The kind of person who could talk himself into or out of anything. But charm doesn't pay rent. 3 years ago, he called me late one night. Just until I'm back on my feet, he said. His landlord was threatening eviction. He sounded stressed. Embarrassed. I wired him $900. He paid me back 2 months later. That's how it always starts. Temporary. Reasonable. Manageable. Then it happened again. And again. Then it wasn't about rent. It was utilities. Car repairs. Credit card emergencies. The tone shifted slowly, so slowly I didn't notice. Can you help? Turned into, you got me, right? Thank you disappeared. Requests became assumptions. And then the jokes started. At Thanksgiving last year, Ethan had raised his glass and said, "Here's to Sofia, our in-house investor. Family wouldn't function without her direct deposits." Everyone laughed. Even me. Because what else was I supposed to do? Correct him. Make it awkward. Expose the truth. I chose peace. Peace is expensive. 1 month before New Year's, my phone buzzed with a familiar message. Rent hits on the 3rd. Appreciate you. No question mark. No hesitation. Just confidence. That night, I opened my banking app. But not to transfer money. To end something. I scrolled through transaction history. Line after line with Ethan's name attached. January, $900, February, $900, March, $1,150, April, $850, May, $1,200. By the time I reached December, my stomach tightened. $10,214. 37 in 1 year. For someone who publicly called me broke. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I did something quieter. I closed the recurring transfer. The banker asked, "Are you sure? It's been active a while." "Yes," I said. And for the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar. Relief. I didn't know exactly when I would tell him. I just knew the next time he used me as a punchline, I wouldn't stay silent. New Year's Eve gave him the stage. He thought he was humiliating me. He didn't realize I had already pulled the plug. And when I stood there in that restaurant, glass raised, heart steady, watching his smirk fade into confusion, I knew something had shifted. This wasn't anger. This was a line. Before I tell you what happened after that toast, who panicked, who begged, and who realized rent doesn't magically pay itself, let me ask you something. Have you ever sat at a table full of people you love, and realized they're only comfortable because you keep sacrificing quietly? And if you stopped, what would collapse first? If you had walked past our table that night, you would have thought we were the picture of happiness. Ocean behind us. Fairy lights glowing. A bottle of champagne chilling between polished glasses. My mother, Monica, was already taking photos. Closer, Sofia, she said, adjusting her phone. We look better when we're tight. Tight. That word almost made me laugh. Because emotionally, we were anything but. My father, David, was in high spirits. He loved holidays, not for reflection, but for performance. He told the waiter, "Big year for us. Families thriving." Thriving. I wondered if thriving meant quietly wiring money so your adult son could avoid eviction. Across from me, Ethan leaned back in his chair like he owned the place. He had that relaxed confidence of someone who never truly faced consequences. He was charming with strangers. Effortlessly funny. The kind of man who could make you forget he owed you money, until the rent reminder text arrived. Appetizers were served. The small comments started. They always do. Monica smiled at me. Sofia's been working so hard. Always so responsible. Unlike some people. She nudged Ethan playfully. He grinned. Hey, I bring personality to the family. David laughed. And bills, he added jokingly. Everyone chuckled. Except me. Because it wasn't just a joke. It was a pattern. Ethan reached for his drink. Relax, Dad. Sofia's got the spreadsheet. She keeps us afloat. There it was again. The subtle framing. Not appreciation. Expectation. I noticed something that night I hadn't allowed myself to notice before. No one corrected him. No one said, actually, maybe you should handle your own expenses. Instead, it was treated like a cute family dynamic. The responsible daughter. The carefree son. Balance. But balance implies equal weight. I had been carrying most of it. My phone buzzed again. I didn't even need to look. I knew it was him. I opened it anyway under the table. Don't forget the third. Landlord's strict this month. Not can you help. Just logistics. Like I was payroll. I locked my phone slowly and placed it face down. Across the table, Ethan was telling a story about buying a new gaming console. Man, it was on sale. Couldn't pass it up. My stomach tightened. The same month he couldn't cover rent. Monica beamed at him like he was still 16. You work hard. You deserve nice things. Do you? I wanted to ask. Or does someone else just absorb the cost? David raised his glass casually. Family helps family. That's what we do. That sentence used to make me proud. Now it sounded like a leash. Because I realized something terrifying. If I stopped helping, Would they still see me as the good daughter? Or would I suddenly become selfish? Ethan leaned toward me, lowering his voice just enough to make it feel private. You know I appreciate you, right? I looked at him. Do you? Or do you appreciate excess? He smirked slightly. Couldn't do half this stuff without you. There it was. Half this stuff. Trips. Drinks. Comfort. Funded quietly. Then, like clockwork, he straightened in his seat. He tapped his fork against his glass once, testing the sound. Clink. My pulse slowed instead of racing. I didn't feel panic. I felt clarity. I had spent years worrying about keeping peace. About avoiding awkwardness. About protecting the family image. But sitting there, watching him prepare to turn me into material again, I understood something. They were comfortable because I never made them uncomfortable. That ends tonight, I thought. Ethan stood fully now, raising his glass higher. Nearby tables glanced over. Monica smiled proudly. David leaned back, expecting entertainment. And I felt something settle inside my chest. Not anger. Decision. Before I tell you what he said next, and how that one sentence finally snapped the illusion we'd all been performing, let me ask you something. Have you ever realized you weren't part of the family dynamic? You were the structure holding it up. The restaurant was buzzing with New Year's energy. Laughter, clinking glasses, countdown screens flashing everywhere. But at our table, time seemed to slow. Ethan tapped his glass again, louder this time, his eyes glinting with mischief. He loved being the center of attention, and tonight, he thought, the spotlight was his. To the one who always shows up, he began, voice projecting, broke, desperate, and still trying to matter. The familiar ripple of laughter followed. My mother giggled softly, trying to mask her delight at her son's wit. My father shook his head, a fond smile plastered on his face. They were ready for the scene they'd seen countless times before, their charming son as the comedian, me as the punchline. I lifted my glass slowly. The smooth motion drew their eyes. To the one whose rent account I just closed, I said. Silence. The sound of it was almost physical. Ethan froze mid-smirk. My mother's hand hovered near her mouth. My father blinked rapidly, trying to process. The people at nearby tables noticed a shift, a strange, electric pause in the usual New Year's cacophony. I wasn't trembling. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I was calm, dangerous calm. Every year of jokes, every subtle expectation, every line of text that had assumed my generosity, it had all led to this moment. You find it funny to call me desperate and broke, I continued, eyes locking on Ethan's. Yet the only reason your apartment isn't empty is because I've quietly been covering your rent for years. His jaw dropped. The smirk flickered, faltered. You call me your sponsor, I said, voice steady. Yet that's all I've ever been to you, a walking ATM, a person to exploit for laughs while everyone else claps. I let the words sit. Let the weight of every transaction, every sleepless night, every hidden bank transfer resonate in the space between us. Monica whispered, Sofia, honey, it's just a joke. No, I said, sharper this time. It's the story you've told yourselves about me. That my sacrifices are weaknesses, that my support is entitlement. That ends tonight. Ethan opened his mouth, tried to regain control. Come on, it's New Year's. Don't be dramatic. I shook my head. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being honest. This is what it looks like when someone stops silently absorbing everything you throw at them. My father leaned forward. Sofia, are you serious? I nodded. I am. And just so we're clear, the recurring rent transfers closed. You have to manage your own life from now on. No more emergency bailouts. No more silent sacrifices. Ethan's face drained of color. You can't just. I already did, I interrupted, calm but firm. It's been years of just once, just this month, just until things calm down. Things never calm down. Not while I pay for your life and you call it humor. The table was quiet, the previous laughter replaced by a tense, uncomfortable hum. Even the waiter paused, sensing something had broken. Monica's eyes were wide, shiny with dawning realization. David's shoulders slumped slightly. Ethan was flailing internally, no charm left to hide behind. For once, I said, voice low but cutting through the noise, I'm choosing my dignity over your comfort. I'm choosing boundaries over being your punchline. And that means you face reality yourself. I set my glass down deliberately, letting the soft clink mark the sentence like a period at the end of a long paragraph of my life that had been ignored, exploited, and joked about. For the first time, I wasn't the invisible backbone. I was the author of my own story. And at that moment, staring into Ethan's shocked eyes, I felt lighter than I had in years. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. The glow of the screen lit my face softly, but this time it wasn't just light, it was a spotlight. I think it's time the whole story is told, I said, voice calm, deliberate. Not as jokes, not as humor, but as facts. Ethan opened his mouth. He wanted to interrupt, but I raised a finger, silent command, this was my moment. I unlocked the notes I had carefully prepared for days before this trip, a simple, chronological list of every transaction, every payment, every time I had covered him. January, I began, scanning the screen. $8.50. February, $850. March, $850 plus $332 for overdue utilities. April, $1,200 when your car suddenly broke down. May, rent again plus overdraft fees. June, $700 toward your credit card because it was about to go to collections. Ethan's eyes widened. He looked like a man watching a past he had ignored catch up with him. You wrote it all down, my father asked, voice tight, disbelief creeping in. I nodded. Every cent. Every month. Every emergency you assumed I'd handle. Monica's hand flew to her chest. Sofia, we didn't realize, I held up my phone. You didn't notice because you didn't have to. You laughed. You called me generous. But generosity doesn't mean you have a subscription to my life. And every joke you've told at my expense. They weren't harmless. They were rehearsals for tonight. The people at nearby tables were now watching. I could feel their curiosity, their attention, strangers bearing witness to the truth I'd carried in silence for years. Ethan's jaw clenched. You didn't have to do all this. I never forced you. You offered. I leaned forward slightly. No, I didn't. But your texts, your casual reminders, the way you projected your panic as my responsibility, that was pressure. You never asked. You assumed. And for years, I let you. David's eyes softened, but the disappointment in them was clear. So all this is real. I scrolled to the bottom. Total for this year alone, $9,643.89, not counting previous years. And yes, I have screenshots if you want proof. Monica's mouth fell open. Ethan's hands shook slightly as he stared at me. The mask of confidence, humor, charm, all gone. You call me broke, I continued, voice steady, yet this is the reality of who's been covering your life while you turn it into entertainment. You wanted a joke. I'm giving you the truth. Ethan looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape route, a loophole, someone to defend him. No one came. Not my parents. Not the strangers. No one could. From now on, I said, lowering my phone and locking eyes with him, you figure it out yourself. Rent. Bills. Emergencies. All of it. I am done being your safety net. The punchline stops here. He swallowed, then muttered, so that's it. No more. Yes. No more. The air between us was thick, heavy with years of unspoken frustration finally released. My parents were quiet, digesting the scale of what had happened. Monica's hand lingered over her mouth, eyes glistening with shame and understanding. David looked older, weighed down by the realization that he had unknowingly enabled the imbalance. Ethan's face went pale. He tried to speak, but the words failed him. The confident, charming persona had vanished. All that remained was a man forced to reckon with the consequences of years of entitlement. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel small. I felt alive. Because in that moment, the invisible backbone of the family had revealed herself. Not to punish, not to shame, but to set a boundary that demanded respect. The clinking of glasses from other tables continued, the countdown on screens went on, and the world spun toward midnight. But at our table, the performance had ended. Reality, long ignored, had finally taken center stage. The room felt heavier after the receipts had been laid bare. My phone sat on the table like evidence in a courtroom, its glow a quiet declaration of years spent in silence. Ethan sat frozen, staring at the numbers. His face was pale, lips pressed together, jaw tight. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again, but the words stumbled over themselves. He had rehearsed every possible joke, every comeback, every smirk for tonight. None of it fit the reality I'd just exposed. Monica's hand trembled against the table. Sofia, maybe you could. Just help him, just until, I shook my head slowly. Just until is what got us here. 1 month, one emergency, one favor after another. Things never calm down when someone else absorbs all the fallout. David, usually calm and controlling, now looked smaller, like the weight of awareness had finally broken through years of automatic indulgence. Sofia, we didn't see it that way. We didn't realize the scale, you didn't notice because you didn't have to, I said quietly. I made it invisible. I carried everything. I didn't want conflict. I didn't want to ruin the holidays. I didn't want to be the daughter who made everyone uncomfortable. Ethan finally whispered, voice low, shaking, I didn't know it was this much. I thought. I mean, you always said it was fine. I didn't realize, you didn't ask. You assumed. And you laughed at it. You called it jokes. I called it exhaustion. He looked down at his hands. I could see the gears turning in his head. Not fear, not yet. Just comprehension. For the first time, he had to face consequences that weren't deflected by my money, my planning, my patience. Monica tried again, softening, pleading. Honey, maybe we can come up with a plan together. Just for this once. We'll figure it out as a family. I looked at her. Saw the worry in her eyes. The desire to preserve comfort over honesty. No. This isn't one more crisis to solve. This is the boundary I've set. Respect it. That's what makes it fair. David exhaled slowly. It's hard to hear. Yes. It's supposed to be. Hard truths are uncomfortable. But they're necessary. And this time, I'm putting myself first. Ethan finally spoke again, quieter, broken, almost human in a way I hadn't seen in years. I'm going to figure it out. I'll get a second job. Sell things. Manage my life. I understand. I nodded once. Not forgiveness. Not warmth. Just acknowledgement. Then do that. Don't ask me to clean up your messes anymore. He swallowed. I'm sorry for everything. For making it jokes. For taking advantage. I didn't see how much I was asking of you. The words hung in the air. My parents shifted, absorbing the gravity of their own complicity, their laughter, their encouragement, their unwillingness to notice the weight I carried. I took a slow breath, letting tension release from my shoulders. Trying is a start, I said. Respecting my boundaries is the rest. The clinking of glasses from nearby tables, the countdown screens, the buzz of New Year's celebrations outside, it all continued. But at our table, the performance had ended. The illusion of perfection had cracked. And for the first time, I felt a strange, unexpected calm. My role wasn't erased, but it was now chosen. Not assumed. Not taken. Chosen. Ethan's gaze didn't meet mine fully. He was processing. Learning. Unlearning habits that had been comfortable for him for years. Monica whispered to David, almost to herself, We never realized. David nodded, shoulders slumping in shame. We should have noticed sooner. I didn't argue. I didn't lecture further. The lesson had landed. It was theirs to carry. And for me, I finally reclaimed space. The first holiday dinner where my voice mattered more than my silence. The first New Year where my presence didn't automatically equal sacrifice. For the first time in a long time, I felt lighter, freer. And I knew, no matter what happened next, I had drawn the line. And finally, they had to see it. 6 months had passed since that night at the New Year's dinner. The memory of the restaurant, the glowing receipts on my phone, and the heavy silence that followed still lingered, but it no longer felt like a weight. It felt like a turning point. I was sitting in my favorite cafe near my apartment, laptop open, headphones in, typing away on a side project I'd been postponing for years. For the first time, the energy I used to spend covering emergencies, fielding panic texts, and absorbing guilt was mine. Mine to invest, mine to create, mine to grow. The door jingled as someone walked in. I glanced up and froze slightly. Ethan. He looked different, not the lazy, entitled brother I'd grown up with, but tired, yes, but in a way that spoke of effort. He had a nervous energy, the kind that comes from someone learning the hard way that life doesn't come with free bailouts. Hey, he muttered, voice quiet. He hesitated, as if unsure how close to come. I nodded. Hey. We sat across from each other, silence stretching for a moment. But it wasn't suffocating or tense. It was cautious, a space where accountability and reconciliation could exist together. Got a second job, he said finally. It's Hard. Still isn't fun. But I'm paying my own rent now. I nodded again. Not praise, not validation. Just acknowledgement. Good, I said. That's all I asked. He took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. I was mad at you for a long time. Thought you were being cruel that night. Thought. I don't know, that it was punishment. Punishment. I raised an eyebrow. I wasn't punishing you. I was setting a boundary. Something I should have done years ago. He looked down at his hands, shame and reflection etched across his face. I understand that now. I didn't realize how much I relied on you. I didn't see how it felt for you. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of the brother I'd grown up with, the one who shared candy with me on Halloween, who helped me ride my bike, who defended me when I was teased in middle school. Not the grown man who had depended on me like an ATM, but the boy who had once cared. I don't expect you to start asking me for money again, I said. Trying is a start. Respecting my boundaries is the rest. That's where we rebuild. He nodded slowly, relief and gratitude blending in his expression. I get it. I really do. I'm sorry for everything. The jokes, the assumptions, all of it. I didn't realize how much it affected you. The cafe buzzed around us, cups clinking, quiet conversations, the hum of life moving forward. And in that ordinary, everyday moment, something extraordinary had shifted. Years of imbalance and unspoken frustration had finally found a new rhythm. I sipped my coffee, feeling the tension drain from my shoulders. This wasn't forgiveness yet, not entirely. But it was recognition. Responsibility. Growth. And for me, that was enough. For now. The rest of the world went on as usual, but my world had changed. I was no longer invisible. I was no longer the family bank, the silent backbone, the target for casual humiliation. I had finally stepped out of the shadows. And as Ethan left the cafe later that afternoon, I realized that some boundaries, once set, don't just protect you, they teach others how to respect you. I smiled to myself, returning to my laptop, my energy finally my own. I was free to focus on me. And for the first time in years, that felt like a gift I hadn't allowed myself to accept before. Months had passed since that cafe meeting with Ethan. Life had settled into a rhythm I hadn't allowed myself in years, one built on my own terms, my own energy, and my own choices. I no longer measured success by how much I could give to others, or how many crises I could quietly absorb. Instead, I measured it by the calm I felt at the end of the day, the projects I completed for myself, and the boundaries I honored. Ethan had made progress. He had stabilized his own life, paying his rent on time, balancing work with responsibility, and even starting a small savings plan. We spoke occasionally, cautiously, but our interactions were no longer laced with debt, guilt, or silent expectations. Respect had replaced entitlement, and acknowledgement had replaced reliance. My parents had started noticing the shift, too. Their guilt was subtle, quiet, not confrontational or overwhelming, just a reflective awareness that they had allowed a dynamic to persist for too long. Our interactions were more honest, and for the first time, I didn't feel obligated to smooth over discomfort. The holidays approached again, and I realized I was excited to see them without fear, without dread, without the familiar weight of being the family's unpaid caretaker. The house looked the same photos, the same decorations, but something had changed. I had changed. I no longer needed external validation to define my worth. I no longer allowed their past behavior to dictate my present peace. One evening, sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, I reflected on the journey. Years of silent sacrifices, of quietly wiring money, of enduring jokes that cut deeper than they should, had all led me here, not to resentment, but to awareness. I had learned that generosity without boundaries can become invisible labor. That love without respect can become exploitation. And that the courage to say no is sometimes the most radical act of self-care imaginable. I thought back to that New Year's dinner, the clinking glasses, the restaurant's ambient buzz, and the moment I stood up and spoke. The fear I had carried for years had been replaced by clarity. That single act didn't just reclaim my finances, it reclaimed my voice, my dignity, and my future. I knew there would still be moments of tension. There would still be requests, subtle guilt, and occasional disappointment from my family. But the difference now was profound. I would respond on my terms. I had learned to prioritize my own life without shame. I had learned that helping others is a gift, not an obligation, and that boundaries are not walls but bridges, the kind that teach others how to treat you. Ethan's occasional text updates reminded me of one thing: accountability is learned, not given. Respect is earned, not assumed. And for me, the real victory wasn't about money, or humiliation, or even recognition. It was about reclaiming my own life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light over the city, I smiled quietly to myself. I had closed one chapter, set my boundaries firmly, and started another, one written not by others, but by me. And for anyone watching this story unfold, know that standing up for yourself is never easy. It may come with discomfort, conflict, and even temporary distance from those you love. But the clarity, dignity, and peace you gain are worth every difficult moment. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for others, is to say no, to reclaim your energy, and to finally live a life that reflects your worth. I took a slow breath, savoring it. This was my story. My choice. My freedom. And for the first time, truly, entirely, mine.